Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coach's Corner. How's
Yay.
everybody doing today? Thanks.
Awesome. Awesome.
Great, great. Thanks for tuning in. This very special Coach's Corner. They're all special to me. I'm sure they're special to you as well. As we get messages and notifications of people how it's helping. So we're always grateful to share this material. And today is a very special chapter as well from a very special book from a very special person. So everything is very special today. My name is Jamel Matias. I'm a certified mindset success coach in the Maryland area. I'm out of town right now, but my brand is believe in the unseen, basically believing in yourself, believing in that goal. And my purpose is to guide you, basically, is to reveal the hidden potential that's already within you and guide you to your truest desires. I work with individuals, entrepreneurs, business owners, you name it. So I'm gonna pass it on to my amazing colleague, Alicia.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alicia Espinosa. I am a certified values and mindset coach in Sweden. And I help people to create a life that feels good on the inside, not just looks good on the outside. So you don't need to chase things from the outside, but because it's everything on the inside. I also help leaders to be a leaders worth following. Lou.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jamel. Thank you, Alicia. So, my name is Lou Perica. I am a certified success mindset coach, and I am located currently in the Maine area. So, I help growth minded women who've hit a turning point in their lives. They've supported, they've achieved, they succeeded, but something inside is shifting. They're not lost, but they're evolving and they're ready to rise. And I guide them through the mindset shifts, the emotional clarity, and the identity work. Because when a woman remembers her power, everything changes. And I'm very excited to be here on this call today. But I also want to do a shout out to our colleague Paul, who is not with us today. He has a dive competition, so we're wishing the best for him and his team.
Yes.
Awesome. Hi, Paul. You see us underwater. Wow, this is going to be amazing. And speaking of water, we literally live in an ocean of motion, of energy, and we're a part of it. So, if you don't know, last 4 episodes we were talked about the chapter before, previous to this, of You Were Born Rich, a very special. There's a seminar, now a webinar, also a book as well, and there's so much there. And now we're talking about an extension of what we discussed in great detail about money, the importance of it. There were so many different topics we shared, didn't we, about money? And now we're talking about how much money is enough for you, enough for the lifestyle that you want, enough for the things that you would like to use the money for. And I'm just going to pass it on because I know Lou is you know itching to jump through the screen to share the first thing that jumped out to her, right
So
here.
can you just pull
Yeah.
the chapter up? So can you just pull? Are you able to pull the page up?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, I love this question. How much is enough? Because I would say the majority of people want more, but what does more mean? And that's what Bob discusses on this chapter, lotsa. We want lotsa, but what is lotsa, right? So we'll just wait for Jamel to pull that up because there is a sentence or two in there that really jumped out to me.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because I'm into chapter 3. I couldn't stop reading, so I'm
Oh,
pulling it back.
you're ahead of the game.
Like, oh yeah, I remember this. Oh, this is good. And repetition is the key to learning. And a lot of people can really, really dive in to understand the importance of that. So what is this doing here? All right.
I just closed the tab that I had of it.
Oh, so that's why I'm on the spot here. It is okay. It's all right. Let's maximize that. Should be able to see it better now. All right.
Okay, so on this first line here, for you to get this prosperity concept into high gear, you must be specific. Exactly how much money do you want? And this next line is my favorite. Remember, you are working with your subconscious mind, and the subconscious does not think. It merely accepts images and then moves them into form. So if you say, for you to say, I want lots of money, it isn't good enough, because no one, least of all the subconscious mind, knows what lots is. So this is what, when most people may read a book or study a book, when the subconscious mind or mindset is spoken about, unless you really understand the different parts of the mind and the jobs that they do, it's kind of vague. It's a little bit more difficult to understand, because as we've gone over in the past in many calls, and we will continue, is the conscious mind is the thinking mind. So we must think first, how much is enough? What is it that we want to achieve, accomplish, have, experience, contribute? How much do we want to grow? And this particular chapter actually takes you, it suggests that we go through an exercise and write everything down. This is something I never really did. I don't know about you guys, but in my mind, I wanted perhaps a particular car. In my mind, I wanted to earn X amount of dollars or live or travel here and there. But I never really wrote it down and connected and made a decision that these are the things that I will experience. And what that does is, now we've given the subconscious mind an image to work with. I think I used the example a couple of calls ago with the reticular activating system. When we talk about, oh, I want a new red sports car, and all of a sudden you start to see red sports cars all around you. So that is the image that you've given the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind starts to bring those images into your experience. And this is why the subconscious mind also acts out repetition. And that's what Jamel just mentioned earlier. It's about repetition. What are we constantly feeding the subconscious mind? Because it must accept. It does not have the ability to reject. So what images, what messages, are we sending to the subconscious mind? I know this is a little deep for the very first, the very first paragraph, but it's important to understand moving forward that everything that we're discussing, everything that we're reading, we're studying, and the dialogue we're having really always does come down to, what are you thinking? What are you believing? How are you feeling? How are you behaving? And what are your results? And this is all the creative process. And this is what You Were Born Rich is all about. It's about the creative process to take a thought that's floating up here, a no thing, and bring it into physical form. Alicia.
Yeah, I think that is very good, that what you say, and also, if I love working with values, you
Yeah.
know. So when you are aware, or when you decide what is what you want, and exactly what you when you have that clarity, the thing is that then, you know, then the you will not chase the money for the money, because then you will think about why is the money important to me, and connect to something that is more that the money is just the tool.
Mhm.
But then it's like, what is what I want to create, or what is what I want to do with that money. Not just chasing the money, but more the purpose
Mhm.
having that money, and to have the clarity to that. Otherwise you will chase all the time the money, and yeah, so it's something that I always think about when somebody asks me, yeah, but I want to have money. Yeah, but how much is that? Is that $1? Because then it's much money, more money.
Yeah.
If you have one more dollar from where you have what you have now, it will give you more money, but maybe it's not what you want. It's so somewhere, as you say, when with the reticular activation system, if you say this is what I want, then the brain will figure out how to go there. But as we discussed it in chapter 1, we need to believe that it's possible.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you will not set that goal. So yeah, it's something that it should be more aligned with what it truly matters to you.
Yeah, this is so good. This is so good. How much is enough? And that question is unique to every person, even
Mhm.
unique to every person at a specific time, because your awareness is different, right? At different times in your life. And here's a funny question. Is latza a real word? I never seen it on paper like that.
Yeah.
But it's funny I focus on that word because like both of you shared, some people want to release weight. Oh, I want to release weight next year or this year. And how much weight is that? Right? I want to look better or I want to feel better. Like specifically, what is that for you? And as you gain clarity, we're goal seeking organisms, right? So when you have clarity in the mind, order in the mind, you're able to, even on a subconscious level, connect with that goal. And the second paragraph, Lou got into it there as well. They mentioned, I strongly recommend that you get very serious about this chapter. So we strongly recommend you get very serious what's being shared in this particular session, because the idea it contains could literally change your life when you really think about this. So and then it continues, but understand that thinking by itself is not enough. You must move into action. All right. So we can get the thinking part. That's what we're going to talk about here. So there are certain things you must do. And the first one is to decide how much money you want. All right. So it talks about gaining the clarity there. And before I started talking there, make sure you drop some comments and engage with us. We always like, and questions as well, because we always like addressing questions here live on Coach's Corner. So that way, we're able to help you the most. So, and it also says, for you to answer this question, it would probably be a good idea for you to decide what you want the money for. So what do you want to do with this money, right? That you desire, that you want. Now you're getting clarity on what you're going to use the money for in your life. And to talk about money a little bit, all it is an extension of you. It allows you to do more good in the world, and also elevate your lifestyle. So you're creating a higher version of yourself. So it goes right into an exercise. At this point, you're probably saying to yourself, oh, yes, I know that, but I want to live better than that. I want to have a better life. It says, I want the money to live on, and it's not good enough. You should realize our society is structured in such a way, blah, blah, blah. So in fact, most places they will never even, it's funny because there's like some humor in here when you read it. But basically, I just want a better life. You want to get clarity in what that better life is for you. What's that better life for you, right? So it gets on to an exercise. It says, get out a sheet of paper, and you can bookmark this part or whatever. You can do it right now. Get out a sheet of paper and draw up a list of all the things or activities that you plan to spend money on over the course of the next year, right? So to assist you in getting started with your list, they outline several sample categories. So now you're getting clarity, right? Food. How much does food in your household cost monthly, right? You can even do annually. Rent, mortgage, clothes, automobile, utilities, education, vacations. We're going on vacation next week, so I might not be able to do Coach's Corner. And also, recreation, insurance, savings. We'll talk about that a little later. But the point is, you want to get out a list and really look at your life for the next year and what you want to do. You want to get clarity. Order of the mind is heaven's first law. So you want to have that clean desk in your mind and not have papers thrown all over the place, because what you see sees you. You see very clearly, and the universe will guide you, especially when you have, oh, this is how much that, oh, I never really looked at it that way. And I did this exercise again just to really dive in. I was like, wow, look at the clarity I received by doing this. So, but I'll pass it on to anybody like to add on to that.
Well, I wanted to jump in because I printed out a couple of key points. So how much is enough? And who really defined in our lives what enough was? And are we willing to redefine it ourselves through our own lens, through our own perspective, through our own potential? Because we discussed this many times, but there's a divine essence that lives within us, and that essence is always wanting to express itself in a much bigger and greater way, and it uses us as the vehicle. So if we limit our income, because I used to hear growing up, and maybe you guys too, but oh, they have enough money. Why do they need that much more money? Now it just becomes greed, or et cetera, right? They're never satisfied. They always want more. And that kind of thinking, especially when you hear it as a child, when you hear it on TV, when you hear adults conversing and having that kind of a dialogue, it really does sink in. And it makes, I know growing up, I felt a little guilty and a little selfish for wanting more. But through the study, through understanding with an understanding that spirit within me, and we all have it, that desire to want more. So limiting that desire does not make us noble. It's actually rejecting the spirit within us. There's so much potential. So when we say we're living our best lives, you may never really live your best life because you're always growing. And part of having more is really to experience more. It's not just the stuff, because we're just caretakers of our cars, our homes, whatever it may be, our phones. None of it's coming with us, right? There's no U-Haul van following the funeral procession. So it's there for you to use, there for you to enjoy, there for you to share with others. It's all part of the human experience. But we have to ask ourselves, what is enough? And where did my definition of enough come from? I was with someone the other day and they were talking about, oh, so and so is very money conscious, very frugal. They're a big saver, which is something I would hear. You know, you must save, save, save. And I also have seen these types of people limiting themselves to enjoy more, right? To enjoy more of life because there's a fear of losing that money, right? The money gives them a sense of security because they feel that it may be taken from them, they may lose it, so they live in a limited lifestyle. And then what happens is if they pass, it goes on to the next person. What do you think that next person is going to do with all that money that has been saved? They're going to go out and enjoy their lives. So to look at money and to understand it's a tool for you to experience the lifestyle. So redefine what you think and what you've been taught and what you may believe what enough is. If you want to live, if you truly want to experience a certain lifestyle, make that your focus. Write it down. These are the things I want to experience. I want to experience traveling. Maybe you want to travel first class. I want to experience driving a good car, something that doesn't break down. I want to experience what it's like to be able to do what I want when I want. But we, just like Jamel and Alicia was saying, we need clarity. Get very clear on what it is that you truly want to desire to experience, desire how much you want to grow, because it's all part of your growth. Your identity must shift as you're experiencing these things. And what do you want to contribute to society? So it's not just what do I want, but also what do I want to give? How do I want to serve others? This is all part of really designing the life that you want to experience while you're here. Alicia.
Yeah, that is so good because I wrote here when you do this list with whatever you want, it's very important to ask yourself, what do I want to experience? How do I want to grow, to continue my growth or personal development, and how I want to contribute. And here is so important that we think about what I value, because maybe, for example, Lou says that you love traveling. And then I say, oh, yeah, but Lou is traveling. So maybe I should have that,
Mm,
you know? So it's a difference between memetics goals than the normal goal that is coming from you, the intrinsic goals, not extrinsic goals,
mhm.
because then you will chase all the time your happiness and your joy, and then you go to travel, and then you discover that you don't like to fly, you know. And then you say, oh my gosh, but I don't know why Louis loving traveling. Yeah, but it's not your values. So you need, when you sit down with these three questions, how I want to, what do I want to experience? How do I want to grow, so development, and what I want to contribute, is that it comes from you, from your own principles and your own values. Because then when you define this wealth or the money you want, is more value driven, more purpose driven than ego driven.
Mm,
And then you will find that. So and you talk mm, about this, that we are always growing. And if your vision, so the bigger your financial vision is, the more people you can impact.
Mm-hmm.
And so bold goals are not selfish, because if they are rooted to the purpose, a meaningful outcome. So it's something that I always think about that. So the more wealth you attract, the more you can amplify your values in the world, giving from you, contribute more. Um, so it's one something that and also, we are going to talk about later about savings, so I also will come back, but this is what it came to me, that is important, that is coming from you, not
Mm-hmm.
extrinsic. Yeah.
Yeah, this is so powerful to understand, you know, and it always gets better. It says here, you could be driving a car that is getting old and is showing signs of rust, but you might visualize yourself driving a brand new car of your choice. Lou mentions the bright red car that you trade every year or two, right? So how much would that cost? Right? Imagine getting a new car every 2 years, if that's something that you desire. But I underline this part here. Remember, you do not have a contract to live forever, nor is this a practice run. This is your life, and you
Mm-hmm.
should be enjoying it to the fullest extent humanly possible. I had to underline that because it jumped out at me, especially while I was doing that list, because a lot of us like to limit ourselves, mentally and spiritually, and because we've been conditioned. And it continues. Therefore, you should have the amount of money you need to provide the things you want, to live the way you choose to live. So it's very, very unique to you. How do you want to live your life? And this was so huge. This is so big. Let me caution you. I laugh because I hear Bob speaking. I feel him speaking through here. He says, let me caution you. It would not be unusual for your mind to be playing tricks on you at this point. You could be thinking, this is really crazy. I'm never going to have the money to live the way this book or what they suggest, right? I want to remind you, however, that there are many people who do have enough money to live the way this book suggests, right? And they weren't born with it. And no one left it to them. They were born rich, right? In the sense of having the God-given potential to succeed, right? Everyone is. It even says everyone is. But like most people, they were at one time short of money, right? So understand that you too can succeed, and you will. It will only, if you only do as this book suggests, or this particular session. Actually, because we're sharing the whole book, right? So take these little pieces and understand that you have this potential, and don't be afraid of writing down the things that you really want and putting a price to it. I did monthly, so that way I can see monthly what that costs, and then I expanded to what do I need to earn annually, right? And you can even break it down further. You can take monthly to every week and just look at the things that you really would like. Maybe you want to go to a fancy restaurant with your partner, your loved one, maybe twice a week. How much does that cost? And what's fancy, right? Because fancy to one person and fancy to another, it's all perception, right? So maybe you want that new car you've been looking at many, many years, or this year, I want a new car. Okay, so break down the total cost of the car and break it down monthly. I did that. I broke down the total cost of the vehicle, and you can break it to small pieces so you know what your monthly payment would be, right? So the point here is to remember that it even says right there, you don't have a contract to live forever. This is why it's important to do this now, right? This separates you from your limiting self putting things off all the time. This is your life, your future. Do it now. And you'll thank yourself. Your future self will thank you, like, wow, oh, thank you for doing that and taking the time. Because I was just going to keep reading. And I was like, you know what? Let me do this as I'm reading and hold myself accountable. And I actually did thank myself. I was like, wow, this is so good. Anyway, anybody want to share with what, you know?
I want only to say to Shanta Michelle, we are talking about the book You Were Born Rich from Bob Proctor.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Shante. Yeah, You Were Born Rich. Yeah, it's one of his most popular books. So yeah, dive in. It'll be awesome, and we'll share it in depth, you know, in these particular live sessions. But yeah, thanks, Alicia, for catching
Yeah,
up.
and welcome. And what I love to, what I love about Coach's Corner, because these kinds of conversations, at least around the dinner table that I was around, and the conversations that were around our dinner table, were not these conversations. And if you tune in every week, we are talking about the stuff that really makes life rich, so worth living, so something that you truly want to experience instead of the grind. See, when I look back, I realize that I mentioned this many times. I was just doing. I was just doing. I didn't realize that I could actually kind of take a pen to paper and create the life that I wanted to experience. I didn't understand anything about the mind. It was just a word to me. I didn't understand the powers and the tools. I didn't understand, like when we say how much is enough, enough is just it's not a number, it's a state of mind, right? So the mind is the spiritual instrument that is connected to infinite supply. So it depends on how limited your thinking is, right? Which will limit your potential. But once you expand your mind, you expand your potential. But these conversations were not had when I was a child in my family, in the environment that I was raised in. So this is why I think what we share is there's so much value, because I believe the majority of people did not have these conversations. And true prosperity isn't just financial, it's emotional and it's spiritual wealth. This is really, I believe, for us on this panel, has really given us a full, rich life. So we're always mindful about what we're thinking, how we're feeling, how we're behaving, and the results that we have in our life is just a printout. We try not to get emotionally connected to that printout, but just look at it as a sign. Just like, we use the example, if you're driving your car and the oil sign goes on, the oil light, right? You go, oh, okay. But you don't say, oh my God, I'm a terrible driver. Oh my God, I don't take care of my car. It's just a signal. It's just a sign that you need to pull over and get some assistance, whatever, go to a mechanic or go. That's all it is. We don't take it personal. Same thing with our results in life. Whatever you're experiencing right now, if this is something you choose to change, if you prefer to experience something else, you have the power. That yesterday's results does not mean that you are stuck with those results. You have the ability and the potential to change it. And this is what all these discussions and conversations are about, that we all have the power and the ability to create our own reality.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I want to say something about that. Even if you are minimalistic, the deciding how much or what how much do you want, it will create a peace of mind. So you don't need to be have fear of something, but because you know exactly what you want. So it's very, I think that we all want to have a peace of mind, and to decide that is one of the way we can get some peace of mind. Um, and I believe also that having clarity about the clear number help us to set boundaries. And this is not greed, but it's more like setting boundaries about you can decide or draw a line so you don't overwork, or you don't overspend, or you don't overextend. So it's always better to have that clarity in yeah. And the emotional also, it will be an emotional clarity. And so it is yeah. So I think that this is very good to have that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Clarity is extremely important when you want to create something that isn't here in the physical plane yet, right? Remember, everything's created twice, once in the unseen and then in the seen. So you want to create it in your mind first, right? You have to create it there. Everything starts there. So there was a comment earlier that we missed. Awesome, Phil. Appreciate you.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
insight. Thanks, Atif. Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Phil. And yeah, and look at that. Bring order in our mind, right? So if there's not order in your mind, the outside will reflect the inside,
Mm.
right? You're making this recipe of food and you're throwing all types of random seasoning in there. You're throwing pasta in there. You're throwing cheese in there. And all of a sudden you pour milk in there. Like it's all over the place, right? So you're making some hosh posh of, of a dish. So if you know the recipe, now you're getting a list of the things you want. And now you know how much it costs to live that lifestyle. Now you're getting clarity on that recipe of the mind, if you will. So they talked about Bob listening to Attitude by Earl Nightingale. And I'm going to quote Earl here. He says, "Now, right here, we come to a rather strange fact. We tend to minimize the things we can do, the goals we can reach, and yet, for some equally strange reason, we think others can do things that we cannot."
Mhm.
Earl went on to say, "I want you to know that this is not true. You do have deep reservoirs of talent and ability within you, and you can have the things you want." So, listening to that, and I wanted to share that here because as you make this list, sometimes you want to kind of hide a little bit. Oh, I don't need those. I don't. It's what you really desire. How do you want to see your life? And we allow our old conditioning, our old paradigm, our limiting beliefs to hold us back from what we want to desire and even imagine for ourselves. This was me. And I'm sure all of us can relate to this, right? So you want to let all of that go and really open yourself up to what you desire. And when he was listening to the Attitude, he said, I listened to it hundreds of times. And he said, I suddenly realized what he was driving at. And I knew deep down inside me, if they can do it, so can I. So if there's anyone you admire, their success, their lifestyle, any character traits or whatever that you admire, you can accomplish the same thing and more, right? So, and then he mentioned something very powerful here. If I'm willing to pay the price.
Mm.
Huge. So please understand, you too can do it, because what Earl had to say is true. of you as it was of me, but part of the price for you is to figure out what is that price for you, right? So, and not only monetarily, like mentorship is what we're sharing here, but also the time, the energy, the focus, and letting go of your past limiting self. That price is different for every person. You know, it says, but part of the price for you is to figure out. So you have to start with this list because that's the starting point, right? Because it gives you clarity on how much money is enough for you to live the lifestyle that you want. I didn't want to pass over that because that kind of really jumped out to me. And we know as we're growing ourselves and changing our lives and accomplishing things and impacting people, that the price is not always tangible, right? It's not just here's the price. No, it's you being open, having an open mind, right? A parachute doesn't work if it's not open, right? So having an open mind to even visualizing, imagining the person you're becoming. Very, very important to understand and to appreciate.
Yeah, I can hear Bob describing that moment when I believe he was watching Bill Gove on stage, and he had listened to that attitude recording hundreds of times. So he had heard that, right about this moment, you're going to see somebody and you think they can do it, but you cannot. And he was watching Bill Gove on stage and it hit him. That's what Earl Nightingale meant. And the reason that hit me so much when it hit Bob is because when I would look at somebody on stage, because I really, part of my desire, what I want to experience is really to be on a big stage speaking to many people, right? And when I go to public speaking classes or I go to listen to somebody and I look at them, I'm watching them and I'm saying, I can do this. I can do it. But before, I had those people up on some sort of pedestal that only they had this special recipe that they could do it, not me. And so when I hear that, I get that feeling because now I see I can do that. I can do that. And you mentioned, Jamel, the price that needs to be paid. And the price is building my skill set, my speaking abilities, looking for the opportunities to speak on stage, doing the work. But the work is not a grind. And this is why it's so important to be emotionally connected to what it is you truly want, because the world is getting louder and louder. You'll notice, like, if you're on social media, it's now become like commercial media, right? It's all commercials because people are drifting away from TV, or they'll watch Netflix where there's no commercials. So they'll get you some way, somehow. And it'll be on social media because that's where most people are on. We all have to really be so emotionally connected to what it is that we truly desire, what we truly want to experience, contribute, and how much we want to grow. Because when we're focused on that, the noise just goes away. Because most people will ask us, and I'm sure you guys hear this, well, I really want it, but I don't have the time. I don't have this. I don't have the money. Blah, blah. This is why when you're emotionally connected to something, you'll say, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'll figure it out as I go along, but I'm going to do this. I don't know how long it will take. I don't know where the resources, the people, the money, the time is going to come from. but I'm going, and there is such a conviction. And that conviction shifts the image in your subconscious mind. I think I shared this the other day. I was doing a breathing exercise and they told me to breathe, take a deep breath, hold it, let it out, blah, blah, blah. And then after we did a few of those deep breaths, they went on to the meditation or whatever it is they were talking about. And I realized after that session, I says, my goodness, I was consciously aware of breathing. But once I stopped thinking about it, what happened? I was unconsciously breathing because the subconscious mind controls the bodily functions. So while my mind was focused on the meditation now, the subconscious mind was taking care of my breathing. It's the same thing when you're driving somewhere. You've driven to a certain place so many times, you don't even have to think about how to get from where you are to where you want to. You don't have to think about it because the subconscious mind already has the image, it already has the pattern, and it will take you there. Meanwhile, your mind is thinking about, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. Or you're having a conversation with someone. It's the same thing. If you're not consciously thinking about what it is that you truly desire, the outer world, all the noise and distraction is constantly pulling you away. This is why being emotionally connected to what it is that you truly want is vital. So I just wanted to get that message through, because having something that you truly want, and if you're not seeing the results quick enough, because we're in this kind of a world now, right, where everything happens real fast, the majority of people give up. I tried that. But when you're emotionally connected, when you make a committed decision, this is what I will have, this is what I will experience, you shift your energetic signature. You show up differently. So to want things is absolutely natural, right? It's part of your growth to want. Don't feel greedy. Don't feel selfish. It's part of your growth. But we need to, it's be, do, have, right? So be the person that has these kinds of things, whether it's material, emotional, spiritual, right? Where they fall in line, like Alicia says, with your values. You must be that person. Being that person shifts your vibration, shifts your energetic signature, and you show up differently. Then the opportunities show up because the subconscious mind now has a new image. There's a new sheriff in town. So that little red sports car will start showing up where you look. It's a reminder, oh, this is the image that we have in the subconscious mind, whatever that may be. It could be, and we're just using the little red sports car, right? But the subconscious mind acts like a GPS or a search engine. It will start to look for things in your outer world to bring to you. So again, get emotionally connected with what it is that you truly want to experience. Alicia.
No, I really think that is the key to be emotional connected to that, and it comes from the values, what your values are. And even if you are looking for what other people does, people that you admire, so it's very important that you don't just go doing what they are doing if you are not sure that is in from within. Because as I have my here my frame, that we see the world from different frames. And if you are trying to create a life from this type of frame, but looking from people that have this type of frame, then the only thing that will happen is that you are not going to take actions, and you will get frustrated. And then the envy will come. You say, oh, good, but they are doing this, they are doing that, and I'm not doing that. And you get envy and you get frustrated. Yes, because it's not according to your frame. So in order to take action and pay the price that you need to pay, it should be aligned with your values. And you also need to think, if you are not taking the action because you say, yeah, but this is what I want, but you are not taking actions, then you should think, what other needs do I have that is in conflict with this new thing that I want? Because sometimes our values can conflict to each other, or that we have a subconscious need that is not satisfied, and is why we are going for that. For example, I will give you an example, is that if you have a lot of in your life that you want to create something, you have a creativity is one of the biggest values, but you have a subconscious need to be liked, that people like you, then because that need is in the subconscious mind and you are not aware of that, then you will create some frustration because you want to create a lot of things, but the need at being like it is controlling you. And you are not aware of that. So when you're not taking your action, even if you like, yes, I want to do this, but I don't know why I'm not taking the action. I don't feel inspired. Look at the needs that are in the subconscious mind. Yeah.
Awesome. This is wonderful. This is so good. Well said, Alicia and Lou. Anytime that we're not taking an action towards our higher self or a better life, it's our limiting self that's trying to hold us back. It's our old conditioning, our old self that will always put up a battle to stop you towards something outside of that little comfort zone that you've been in for a long time. And there's something kind of moving on here that connects to the exercise we mentioned there. And I definitely wanted to mention this because it's important, right? He says, by now, you should have completed your list and arrived at a figure, right? How much, basically how much is enough for you to live the life you want. So it says, take a pen and paper, write that number down in big, bold figures. Now clear your mind of that idea and move on with me to another very important idea. So it says, realize that although this idea might not apply specifically to you, at least at the present time, it certainly will apply to many readers. So what he's referring to here, he says, now, if you're alive and healthy, you will create this wealth for your estate. You will, especially if you, abide by these directions here. But what if you die or have be permanently disabled? I know it gets kind of dark there when you think about that, but he says, well, our society is taking care of that situation as well. We have life insurance and we have disability insurance. So he gets into that basically to protect the income that you'll be receiving with this higher lifestyle. And, basically he gets into about saving a certain percentage based on your income to pay for those type of insurances. And I think it's really good because it had me look at, the protection of financial stability, especially in a case like that. And I underline this part here. Keep in mind, there are only two ways to earn money. People at work, right? You're providing some type of service, or money at work, right? Because remember, you can multiply your income in different ways and have money work for you. So he breaks down life insurance or disability insurance and how important it is to protect the especially if something of that magnitude happens for your family, your loved ones, and relatives that you're supporting. So he says, you will be happy to know the remainder of this book is designed for the person who is going to live. I love this. And then he goes on to say, when do you start to live this good life? When do you start it? Is that the question you're beginning to ask yourself? Well, you start right now. You start today, right? And start by answering the following questions. How often do you pay your phone bill? How often do you pay your rent or your mortgage or the grocery store or gas for your car or pay the doctor? How often do you pay yourself? Now we're touching on a few things where, majority of people don't do, right? And then they go into detail about, I think it was 20%, no, 10%, I believe, to pay yourself first or anything. Yeah, it was 10%. He broke it down in different ways, but this allows you to basically multiply your income. You're shifting higher from where you are. You have to start from where you are to get to where you're going. And I love how it was laid out here. They pay themselves first. He says this is better known as the Babylonian law of financial success. So he gets into great detail here, and there's some humor there as well. A part of all you earn is yours to keep. So making yourself a priority is so important. And I had that backwards for many years of my life, where I just paid all the bills and I might have some left over for some, fun or whatever. But this is shifting your focus. Now you're getting, what is that? Clarity. You're getting clarity and actual definitive plans towards what you want to achieve and who you're becoming. Anybody want to talk about that? I know it's a long part, but I just wanted to get that in this episode.
Yeah.
You only do one episode for this chapter.
So Bob is referring to, it's a little book, and I highly recommend this book. This book definitely changed how I handled money. And it's called The Richest Man in Babylon. It's a little teeny tiny book. And it is about putting aside and paying yourself first. And I remember my dad saying to me, if you own a business or you're in business for yourself, you must pay yourself first, because what's the point? Oh, it's like, oh. So that little book created a habit for me that I still use to this day. Whenever I receive any form of money, I have multiple accounts but the first one is my 10%. That's my first one to myself. And then I think Bob goes on to say about 20% maybe for investments and things, and then whatever your bills, etc. But it's that little book, I just, again, highly recommend it, because it will start you appreciating, really, first of all, money, but to start to get into the habit to set aside X amount of dollars. And what I would do too is, if I have, let's just say I get a check for $1,000, 10%, right? So $100 goes into one account, and then I break it down. But that $1,000, so if I put that 10% aside and then I put some X amount, another percentage into another account, I still base it off the $1,000, not the $100, the $900 that is left over. I still base it off the $1,000. And then after I put money into all these little accounts, I take out X amount of dollars to go and have fun. So all my bases are covered. And then you take that 10%, and then eventually, once it builds up, you now take a portion of it and invest it. So this is what he's talking about, money working for you, right? So you take that money and you invest it into something else. So again, let me just recommend that book. It's The Richest Man in Babylon, a little tiny book. Get into the habit of whenever you receive money, break it down. Break it down. Put monies aside. And I think Bob was talking about if you're in debt, put money aside to pay off any debt that you have. Get into the habit. Have a respect for money. But remember, we are the master, it is the servant, but we still do respect it, respect the power in a sense, because we live in a society, that's what we use is money. So again, just wanted to mention that book, give it a shout out.
Yeah, that's good. Uh, Something that also I go back to values, values, is that if wealth building is not in your values hierarchies or values, you will spend all the money. You will not pay you the because it's not in your radar. You need to the liberty and say wealth building is one of my values and then start working to get it to stick.
Mhm.
Because otherwise you will expand if you love traveling, you will travel until you don't have any money. Or if you love buying clothes, you will all the time buying, but you are not going to 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 save. I have my it's like 65% necessity, 10% financial freedom, that is the paying myself that we call. 10% is for the short term necessity. I mean, like if something happened with my car, then I have the money there. And then is 10% education for myself, my personal growth. 10% for the play, and 5% for contribution. This
Mhm.
is how I structure that. Yeah.
I love
But
it.
Yeah.
as I say, make wealth a value, not a priority, because priority you can always change, but a value. If it's a values, you will pay the price that is you should pay. Yeah.
Hmm. You should pay the price you should pay.
Yeah.
Wow. That triggers so many thoughts right there. But, either way, you're paying a price, right?
Yeah.
Either you're paying the price to stay where you are, or you're paying the price to move forward to who you choose to be and what
Yeah.
you really want, right? That's very powerful.
And
Uh,
something that I want to say is that sometimes people think that, yeah, but $20 is nothing. But try to go to buy something at the store and you have only $15. It's like everything, every penny counts. So yeah,
yeah, every penny counts. And what that is, it's momentum,
yeah,
you know.
Mhm.
And kind of break it down, I follow pretty much the structure of what Bob recommends here. But we're talking about 10% of everything you earn, 10% of all the income you have is for your financial independence account. So what that means is they share here the remainder of the money that it goes either into savings until such a time as you have accumulated enough capital to make a wise investment. So savings or investment, basically, 10% of all the income that you earn, right? So that way, you're growing in value there. Your income is growing in value. And what we were talking about, 20% was for what they call as a debt clearance account, basically eliminating debts, basically taking just 20% of your income. And they go into detail here about having, let's say, he has like a letter offering debt collectors or whatever format. But that's basically what those two numbers were about, just to kind of clear that up. 10% for your financial independence, 20% to clear debt. And look at that. You have 70% of your income for, the other things that were mentioned here outside of just those two commitments.
yeah,
So, and towards the end here, he says, I am what this is important. He says, from this moment on, never think of debt again. Remember that has all been taken care of. So now you have this structure. So just focus on your savings or investment and watch it grow. Repeat, I am wealthy. Money is good. I use money. I love people. And these are powerful affirmations you can add, to your repertoire, right? And he said, you must see yourself on the screen of your mind already earning the new annual income, which you have calculated you need. So now you're visualizing, right? That you need to buy the things you want in order to live the way you choose to live. So you want to visualize that, get emotionally involved with it every day as much as possible, because as we know, the outside world will throw so many distractions to us. It's waiting for us to pull our attention here, pull our attention there. But if you're losing focus and connection to where you're going financially, you're allowing the outside to play with you. You're becoming the plaything for outside sources. And you don't want that every day or at all, actually. This is why thinking is important and getting clarity. So he also says it has already been brought to your attention that very few people ever develop real expertise in the area of serious financial planning. So this is serious financial planning. And he also recommend finding a financial expert as well, in addition to doing this type of work for yourself. So I wanted to mention here, it says, people fall into three distinct categories with respect to finances. This was so big, and we're doing great. I wanted to make sure we get all this in this episode. He says, number one, people come from a deficit position. They're in debt, right? That's number one. And these are three distinct categories that most people are in. Number two, a break-even position, just getting by, but debt-free, right? You're getting all the money you earn, it's going right back out, right? And then number three, a surplus position, right? So these are the categories everyone falls into, right? So it's important to understand it was kind of thrown in there at the very end. I'll read here. It would be very easy to trick oneself into believing that if one were in category one or two, all one must do is earn more money. Excuse me. And then one would automatically graduate into the third category. But of course, this is not necessarily true, right? For if a person is in a deficit financial position, you're in debt, it means they are in the habit of spending more money than they earn. So you created a habit, right? It doesn't matter what scale you have, how much money you're earning, but if you're, in deficit, you're in debt, maybe you earn $1 million a year or 2 million, but you have debt that surpass it, right? So similarly, if they are in a break-even position, they are in the habit of spending everything they earn, right? Since we are all creatures of habit. I got that from Earl. It follows that earning more money would not necessarily change our overall financial position. It is vitally important that when you decide how much is enough for you, you also design a new financial plan or have one designed for you, which will force you to discipline yourself at least for a month or two until you form the new habit of living by that new plan. So that is huge. I wanted to make sure we got in here.
It is. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Yeah. So, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, get in the habit to tuck a buck, as we used to say, tuck a buck, and to be grateful for the $10 before you can be grateful for the 10,000.
Yeah.
The 10,000 doesn't come unless you've learned to be grateful and how to get into the habit of using that $10. And Alicia, you mentioned something also is contribution, right? Tithing. So that is definitely, so if you have that $10, you put $1 aside for this, you put some of that, and then you also include tithing, contributing, and you will learn how I know for me doing getting into that habit, it created a real respect and gratitude for money. And really, it made me get very clear on just how far I could stretch a dollar, so to speak. Where before, like, oh, a dollar is nothing. But really, it really is something, right? But I had to change my ways. Just like you just mentioned, Jamel, if you can't live off of what you're earning now, more money doesn't help because you haven't developed the gratitude and the habits and the respect and the wealth values of what you have now.
Mhm.
And I know many people, no matter how much more money they earn, they're always in the same cycle.
Mm.
So yeah, but learn how to tuck a buck, as we say.
Yeah, I had a habit before to buy shoes.
Oh well, yeah. Doesn't make you a bad person, Alicia.
But you know what? It was because I came from a very poor family, or money. We don't have so much money. And when I started to work at 14 years old to pay my school, it was like paying school, the transportation to the school, and buying clothes and shoes. And that habit I had that. So I needed to change that. And it wasn't to show anybody how I clothes, because I use the clothes for mine, and I what I like, and so. But it was because I felt good, and yeah, but when I started with this, I needed to, especially when I started working with values, I started to think differently, because I was buying shoes, all the time, and didn't have the wealth mindset to create this saving. So I am so happy that I now, the first impulse is like, oh, I like these shoes. And I said, but do I need them? No, I can buy them, but I don't, I choose not to, you know, because it's not like, because you cannot say, oh, but I don't have the money to buy that. No, I have the money, but I choose not to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is totally different from saying to the mind, to your mind, the subconscious, that you don't have the money. That saying, I have the money, but I decide not to do that. And I have money in my pocket, in my, so when I go to the shopping, I say I can buy because I have the money here, but I don't want.
Mm.
Yeah. That
Hmm.
just was something that it came to me.
Yeah, this is great. As you can tell, that's a discipline, right? That you shared, and a new habit, right? Um, and it's interesting to hear these because we all, pretty much have that similarity of coming from an unwealthy background, monetized,
Yeah. Yeah.
monetarily wise, right? I came from I wouldn't say a poor family, because I always
No,
felt we were
yeah.
rich, Well, I know
Yeah, we were rich in other things, but poor
yeah,
in money. But
right,
money
right.
deficit.
And, it's important to understand the richness of a mindset as well, because what, Lou and Alicia shared is you develop basically better habits, right? You start today, right? And how do you do that? We talked about basically a few things with the importance of money last couple episodes, but now we talked about you getting that list of that new version of you that you want, right? And then we talked about gaining structure in your current state financially, and also habits. We talked about a lot today that is very powerful that you can apply. But, you know, this is just one piece of the puzzle, right? Reach out to us today, or, you know, set up a call with us, because we have our links in the description. You can always just message us on whatever social platform that, you know, you're watching this. And I'm really glad to see that Alicia shared a prop today. You know, I was feeling that, you know, haven't seen one in a while, so it was great to, you know, see
Yeah.
one come out of nowhere. But, you know, make sure you apply this. This is very important. This is your life. This is your future. This is your money, right? And you know what's really special about it? It even said it at the end, as you're following that structure. This is so powerful. It says, but for the time being, just bear in mind that as your income increases, the 10% you're saving or investing increases, and the 20% that is going to your debt increases, which means that you will be able to retire your debts faster. Furthermore, you will then be left with 90% of your income on which you live. I can see you getting excited about this idea already.
Yeah.
So you're making more, you're investing more, your whole financial situation shifts from what you've been doing. This is why mentorship is so powerful, because it's like you have someone outside of you looking inside of what you've been doing, right? And you're like, wow, I would have never thought that unless I caught this episode, or unless I read those words. This is life changing, life transformational. And it even changes your mindset. We get so stuck in our own minds. It's insane. And you'll never look up. Some people never look up or try to look out the window. Open all those windows, open the door, let that air in, and you'll see there's a totally different version of you waiting to be created. So it's so important. We'll see you next time. We're over time today. You got something special.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Bye
everybody.
bye.
See you next week. Thank you for joining us.